Hello, I'm Robert, and you're welcome here in my busy little shop. On today's episode of What's on the Workbench, the snake is back in the shop. I had one of my previous customers, I think he saw the belt that I made with the snakeskin, but I made him a wallet last year. It was a tooled wallet. Turned out really nice, but he asked me, would I make him a snakeskin wallet? So that's today's project, is turning this snakeskin into a wallet. I do appreciate you taking time to be in the shop today. Let's get over here on the workbench and we will get this project started. Okay, so to get started on this wallet, the one thing that I would say about using a snakeskin on the outside of a wallet is I've really become a little bit concerned about durability. So what I'm going to do is I'll laminate this to a piece of some vegtan leather. And let me do a quick into the oven and out of the oven. Here's what I mean by that. I went ahead and I cut a piece of snakeskin here, and I've got the main body of the wallet here prepared as well. So what I'll be doing is I'll be laminating this snakeskin onto here, and to help give a little bit of relief, like I do on my belts, I create a edge here on belts that I think will help carry some of that load of going through loops and out of loops. In this case, into your pocket and out of your pocket. So what I'm going to do is laminate on here. Now, a lot of times I might be tempted to laminate it here on this flesh side instead of the smooth side of the leather, because you get really good adhesion on there. But when you flex a leather hide, there is more compression and expansion going on here in this this side of the leather as opposed to that. That's why I'll be laminating this to the smooth side here, to try to eliminate some of that stretch that the hide will go through. Then what I'll do is, and I've already started it, is I'll create a window that you'll see through. Matter of fact, I've got this most of the way cut. Let me grab my knife here. And let's finish cutting this out here. The reason why it's cut to there and not all the way, when you're cutting a window and you pull this way, it's easy to nick into this corner. So what I did is I cut to there and I stopped, and I'll just finish it off here. And then I'll need to go through and do a little bit of a bevel and burnish this inside window, because once I get it laminated together, it's going to be a challenge to do. So now it'll go look like this. That'll be there, and this window will be here with that finished off. So it'll be sandwiched between. My hopes are that whenever you're using the wallet and you slide it in and out of the pocket, that these edges here will help take some of the wear and tear off the face of this snakeskin. It's pretty thin. I think it's fairly durable. I guess we're going to find out here. So that will make up the outer part of the wallet. Then I just need to complete my assembly that comes on the inside of here and has the pockets for credit cards. When that's all sewn together, then there'll be a pocket here for cash. So with that said, let me go ahead and I'll get this finished here. And I usually just run like a number 1 on the inside here to get rid of some of this potential fuzz that I don't want to show. And I'll use a number 2 on the outside. And then I'll just do my typical burnish here on this edge. It helps on thin stuff to bring it up on here. I think I'm going to try the number 1. I'm afraid number 2 is too large. Someone's probably going to ask about the weights of this leather. Let me get around here and then I will let you know what that is. To cut these inside radius corners, I use my Weaver corner knife to do that. And if you're wanting to know the size, that inner pocket is 12 millimeter. All right, so I'll go over and I'll burnish these edges, and then I'll come back when we're ready to laminate these together. I'll go ahead and get contact adhesive on it, and I'll show you putting that together. So I have contact adhesive on these parts here. I'll have to put more on the front of the snakeskin before I install this. While I'm at it, this is slightly less than 6, and this is slightly less than 4 here. So I know someone's going to ask, and sometimes I'm negligent in letting everybody know. I try not to use the slicker too much. The roller seems easier on the snakeskin. Okay. And I typically try not to use a ink pen when I'm working with the leather. I'm afraid the solvents and the glue may, make that, wick through. I could have moved over a little bit further this way probably, but we'll be fine here. I'm just putting a line here for me to apply contact adhesive on, or up to. And I made this wide enough. I'm actually going to put 2 rows of stitching around here to sew that window on. One kind of close to the edge and one close to the snakeskin on there. It's just the way I decided to do it. And I stayed back a little bit. I didn't want the adhesive to sneak out from underneath the window or picture frame of leather. Sound like a P-38. I don't know if you heard that or not. Plane overhead there. We have a museum. It's a small museum that's fairly close by, and they actually fly all of those old warplanes, typically on weekends. Today's a Friday, but it's kind of a holiday Friday, so I suppose that's one reason why they're out flying. I'll let that set up, and then I'll be back here in a moment, and we can go ahead and assemble this, and then we can move on to the front pocket area. All right, I think the easiest way to do it is to start here on this edge, this corner. I made this outer pocket slightly oversized to allow a little bit of sanding and trimming. This outside edge, I'm just going to do oil on that. I think it'll tone up to this with that oil, and then it'll match pretty nicely. And after that, I may put some tan coat on there or Rusling. And I'll take a stitch line all the way around this window, pretty close proximity to the edge. I'll do that first, and then I'll sew the outside when I sew the liner into this wallet. So let's move, I'm gonna set this aside for now, and let's move over and work on the liner next. Let me step back here. I'm not sure if I gave you guys dimensions. This is 3 3/4 inches by 9 7/8 is the outside pocket size. This inner part is going to be smaller by a little bit. The inner pocket is going to be smaller. It's going to be 9 1/8 by 3 3/8. Nine 1/8, 3 3/8. So this is some boot lining material here. I bought from Seloy's Leather at the Prescott Leather Trade Show. It's been a couple years ago. He wasn't at the event this year, and I had someone tell me that he is no longer in business, which I hope that's not true. Hopefully he just couldn't make this year. But since he wasn't there, it seems maybe more likely that that's true. But I like the thickness, and it's got a nice finish on it. Let's see what that thickness is here. Like 2, that's 3 ounces. Boy, it seems thinner than that. And then I said by 9 1/8 inches. Okay, that will make up the body of the liner, and it'll be sewn on like this, and that will give room in there for cash. And then when you open it up, it gives you room to be able to access that area easily. So I think that makes sense. So the next thing I need to do is to create my pockets for the credit cards here. And that, based off of my last one, I had it as 2 by 4 1/4, and it seemed like last time maybe it was a little bit tight for my sewn area at the bottom. I'm gonna cut these strips at, I'm gonna go 2 1/4 by 4 1/4, and we'll see if that helps any. Let me see if I can get some out of this scrap here. You always want to watch for overcuts. I guess I should make sure that's square. So I'll have to trim it.
Two and a quarter.
Takes a little futzing to get there. That's a technical term for minute adjustments, if you're wondering. All right. This space in the middle allows this leather to fold back on itself without this becoming too thick there. That's why I've got that space there. And I will probably end up trimming off maybe a 1/16 of this just to make sure they're all stacked up and clean on the ends down here. So it's going to go on there like this. 3 pockets on each side. So there's the top one will be there, just roughly. Next one there, and the last one here. Yeah, that 2's probably would have been right. Okay, so for the pockets on the inside, I need 4 pockets that are cut from 2 by 4 1/4 inches, like that. And then I need 2. I left a little longer. Probably could have left them even longer. This is 2 1/4 by 4 1/4. Once I have these 4 pieces cut, I'm going to cut out pockets that are T-shaped like this. And the way I cut those, everybody's probably got their own way of doing it. It'd be nice to have a clicker. Not going to do that. Last time I said I'm going to do something, I ended up doing it. And I go 3/8 of an inch from the top. Three-eighths of an inch. And 5/16 over there. I create the T's so that the edge doesn't have so much built up leather on the edge of the wallet. You'll see when we get to that assembly part. So 5/16 by 3/8. And then instead of trying to do some measurement, the way I do it is I line up this outside corner here with this cut where that ends there. And I'll do that over here as well. If you can't see where it's at up here, come down a little bit far from it. You don't want to overcut that. And then you can come up here and connect it. And I'll show you how this is going to assemble here. We're going to have a solid pocket at the bottom and these 2 T-pockets above it. So it'll go in here like this. That one there, this one here, and this one below that. And just like that. So that helps to eliminate some of that thickness on this edge of the wallet there. Okay, just like that. Let me cut these others and then I'll come back when we're ready to assemble this part of it here. Okay, so I've got my parts cut out. I'll dry fit it one more time here, see how they look. One, 2, and 3. Just like that. And then the same thing over here. 1, 2, and 3. So the way I've done this in the past, these 4 here I sew down at the bottom. Before I do that, to keep from having this hard edge here, it'll actually wear and telegraph there, and you're going to have some of that. But I'm going to take my skiver here, French skiver, and I'm going to come up here about 1/2 of an inch and just thin this down a little bit here. Let's clean this up a little bit here. Use some double-sided tape at the bottom. For the next, I just want to make sure, like, visually, you can measure if you want, but it needs to be the same over here. I think maybe I'll do this one. I've got that line established. I might as well just do it this way. Work from the top down. So take that double-sided tape off, get that lined up, put that on there. Tap that in place. Double-sided tape liner off of here. I bet if I make a bunch of wallets, I'd get that figured out, make it easier. Then the last one will be this piece here, tucked up there, and it'll be trimmed off to fit. But that will be a little bit later here. So first I need to sew these on. It doesn't need much help. I'm just going to use that 0.06 Tiger Ritza thread, 1/8 inch from the bottom. I'm just going to do this just as an out and back stitch. Doesn't need to be crazy tight because you'll pucker the fabric if you do. And I'm just using this, I think I already said, 0.06 Tiger Ritza thread. Keep the stitch line as thin as possible. back stitches here. And we'll trim that off. I don't want a knot on the inside here because that's where you're going to be putting your hand in to get money out and such. So I'll do a little bit of a melted spot here, but not too big of a blob. And then I'll show you here what I'm going to do. This next one, all I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm in the right spot, and I'll just tip it up, and I'll just do the exact same thing again. So I've got 3 more of those to do. When it's all completed, I will tap those threads down. That does a couple things. One is it really flattens out that stitch line there, and it helps lock them in place. Okay, I'll do that on these others, and then I'll be right back. Okay, let me tap those threads down. Now I have those threads all tapped down in place. Now we're ready to create our 3rd pocket and the bottom on each one of these. And that will be just like that on both. To do that, I'm going to put a light mark on this backside leather there. And there. And install some double-sided tape along here. I might as well go ahead and put it along this outside edge here as well. So I'm futzing with these pockets as little as possible when I get to that point. Keep in mind, the double side tape is there really just to hold it until I get everything sewn together. And I'll start with the center and the bottom. Let's get this first one lined up. I'm looking at my reveal up here as well as this outside edge. Sorry about bumping you there. Line up this edge here. If I need to trim, I can always trim some on this side here. If you misplace it, pull it back off of there. If it removes the double-sided tape, put some more double-sided tape on. I'm watching these two top lines now here to make sure that those are visually lined up. And now that I'm square at the top, and I am, okay. We're getting here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew these two areas here in place. And I'm just going to create an 1/8 of an inch stitch line here, hooking the top here and coming down through here. Some people like a smaller stitch. Nothing wrong with that if that's what you want. I'll have a larger seam allowance at the bottom here. So I've stayed back there. Looks like I'm off just a hair there. Okay. Same task. Sew these down here. And I'll be doing that as a saddle stitch because you can see it here. My saddle stitch, I think, is cleaner than if I go out and back. If anyone was wondering, when I hooked it here, I looked and my stitch ends up right between these. If they hadn't been, I would have probably made an adjustment at that point, either with a smaller stitching chisel pattern or just cheating it down a little bit there. The other reason I did it this way and started up here at the top is I want to put my back stitch here at the bottom. There'll be other stitches coming across there and it'll all get picked up and held together that way. All right, just tap these stitches in. We're getting there. I'm gonna set this aside for a minute. We're gonna get back on here. I'm gonna go ahead and sand and trim these edges. And I'm going to put a radius on these corners because I don't like a square corner on a wallet. But I have to think about how much of a radius I want. So I'll add that in a little bit. I'll probably, the bottom, right? Which one's bottom, right? The bottom, I'll do that when I have everything layered up to get that edge. I may wait to round that top at the same time. But I'm going to take it over and sand this real quick. All right, and it's just a rough sanding here. I just wanted to make sure I know where my edges are that I'm dealing with. So next I need to create my stitch line around this part of the wallet. And I'm going pretty tight here. And the more I'm thinking on it, I think I want to go to the smaller stitch line. It's going to be real obvious on here as opposed to that inner part. Because I'm going to go ahead and use black stitching here. So I need to be pretty precise with my stitching because I think it'll help bring out the color here in the snakeskin and tie these together. And it may not look like it from your angle, at least I'll use that as my excuse, but I'm working to keep this very up and down instead of tipped like I typically do on my belts. Slight difference here. So instead of taking it up, on one side or the other, I kind of split the difference on these last couple stitches. And I find on a curve, it's easier to hide that variation. All right. Let me set up over here in the stitching pony and we'll get this stitched. Already I'm wondering, do I have enough here? I guess I'll find out. I hate it when I do that to myself. The thread's really not that expensive. Well, you can see I've got plenty of thread. All right, so I knew I wasn't going to have enough. I got around to here and decided that I had enough to get about here, and I didn't want to have that on the inside of the top of the wallet. So I went ahead and doubled back over here. You can see it's not extremely obvious, but it's there. And then I made sure I had enough, so I've got some to cut off here, and I'll do I'll probably just do an overlap instead of a double back on here. It'll have the same effect there. So let me get that finished up. So it's actually been going together pretty well. I'm not exactly sure how durable this snakeskin is here. It's a repeat customer. If he called me in 6 months and said, hey, it didn't hold up very well, then I'll make him another wallet of some other sort to make up for it. And I think he would be okay with that as well. I wouldn't do it with rattlesnake. The rattlesnake scales, I think, would be a problem on a wallet. If I had to do one, I would do a smaller window with it. So there we are. I'll go ahead and melt this off. One reason why I didn't want to end up here is I'll end up with either a knot or melt it off, and that's where you'll be reaching in and having your fingers against there, and I didn't want it to be uncomfortable. Here's where we're at so far. So that's the faces you see on both, and then it'll go on here. It'll be sewn from there to here, and then it'll be opened up like this and sewn from there to there. So you'll have this pooch here. And I did make this, you probably can't tell it, but I'm about a 1/16 on both sides long. So I'll be doing some trimming on here. I need to probably think about when I'm going to do that trimming. It's gonna be like that. There'll be a stitch line to follow the outside of here all the way around. And the way I've done that in the past is I will actually start here in the middle where there's not going to be, it's not going to be attached. I'll start here and I'll stitch across to here, and then I'll pick up this insert starting here. So here, here, all the way around, down here. By doing that, it limits the amount of time that I'm fiddling with a wallet that's in this, you know, bent shape. So it'll just be this stretch here that I have to contend with that. And I think what I'm going to do, well, the first thing I need to do is I need to trim this even with the bottom there, or fairly close to it. I think I need to sharpen up the tip. This is a chrome tan leather, and a lot of times they've got quite a bit of stretch, so I made it several cuts so I didn't pull it out of shape. I'm thinking here about how I want to handle this. I think I need to go ahead and, you know, I'm taking a 16th off, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'll do that when I have everything layered up, and I'll probably sand that 1/16 of an inch off. So what I need to do is to give myself a little extra width on my stitching line when I come across this part of the wallet, and then narrow it down for here. And I think this is probably about the right spot by the time I round this. I'm going to go ahead and round my corners. I know it looks arbitrary. Some ways it might be a little bit that way. But what I took into consideration here, when I trimmed this corner, I wanted this curve to start about the same place that this comes in here on both ends. Let me go clean this up a little bit with some sanding. Normally I'd wait till I have this layered up. I did it this way because I want to establish my stitch line here, and that's what I'm going to do next. go ahead and say, what is he doing? This is temporary. Bottom. 1/16 of an inch in, flush at this bottom. Remember, I'm taking a 1/16 off of here, and the same on the other end. So what I'm doing here is I decided that I want to, I don't want to use an awl trying to push through this chrome tan. I think it's going to be tough to do and keep it looking nice and tight. Sorry, I was probably blocking you. So what I decided to do here, I'm taking off this 1/16 of an inch here. This will be flush here. And it will only be sewn from here around. This area here in the center, probably from there to there, will not be sewn in place. So that's important because I want these holes to line up. And then the other thing is, I don't want to, if you've ever nicked this leather here with a chisel, it weakens that leather there. So you're better not to have it like that. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to visually line up here. I'm going to visually line up here to make sure that I'm above that, like that. Okay. Now I have that all sandwiched together, and I can now create my stitch line. Like that. All of these pockets are stress points. The top one more so than anything, because when you open this up and it's pulling on here, it's going to be pulling on this top corner a lot. So I don't want to weaken that any more than I have to. I'm going through the double-sided tape. Chisels get sticky. And I am leaning these chisels just a little bit here. I want to make sure I don't get too close to the edge. Maybe I should have mirrored this shape here a little bit more. But by the time I realized that, I had the groove cut and it would show. Typically on these, I don't have a groove cut. I usually just use the creaser like I did on this one. Okay, that'll be where my last stitch is here. Now, I'll pull this off of there. Well, that tape holds pretty good. And I'll do the same over here. Sorry, I bumped you again. I'm not going to stick that down yet. Let me show you why. There's my 1/16 of an inch. I need to trim off of that side. Flush with the bottom. Okay, I marked there. I'm going to continue here now without the liner in there, because that won't get sewn into it. I think that's it. Let me see. Yep. Okay. There's probably an easier way to do this. And I do have a sewing machine, and I've sewn wallets on the sewing machine, but it usually seems like it takes a practice wallet or two if it's been a while, and I don't want to have a practice wallet or two here. Okay. Now I can continue on, and I'll pick up that liner where it's supposed to be. The only thing I'll do is when I get over here, I'll make sure, once again, that I don't clip the top of that pocket. Okay. Now you may ask, why did he just do that? Why did he take that off? Well, I'm going to use contact adhesive to put those layers together, because when I create a burnish on that edge, I don't want leather that may come apart, and contact adhesive does better, in my opinion, on doing that than using double-sided tape. And yes, some of this is the chrome tan, but it's pretty thin, and I think I can get it slicked down with this as well. All right. So we are getting down here to brass tacks. That line. Put a pencil mark here of where to stop with my contact adhesive. I don't have to be that precise, but and I'll do the same here. Okay. I'll put contact adhesive around to here, and do the same on this. I want to remove the double-sided tape first. Hopefully I can get it off there. This contact adhesive eraser actually works pretty good for removing double-sided tape as well. It's done better in the past. No, I mean it. Boy, it sticks in there good. It has the word permanent in the description of it. Maybe last time I didn't set it with a hammer. I think maybe that was on purpose because it gave me a chance to think a little bit about this process. I was going to put contact adhesive there and on here, but I think I want to just go this side and this one to there and work my way around, and when I get ready over here I'll put the contact adhesive on. So I'm glad it took some time. It gave me a moment to think, and that's one reason I think why I like hand sewing instead of with a sewing machine, because sometimes you move along and maybe you get in deeper than you intended to pretty quickly with the sewing machine. I'm just about out of contact adhesive in here. My pencil mark. Trying to stay mainly on the outside of my stitching holes. We'll let this tack up, get another coat on there, and I'll be back here when I'm ready to put this together. All right, here we are. And the reason why I'm saying here we are is I was talking to you all and you weren't responding, and it turned out I hadn't turned the camera back on. So I put the contact adhesive here. I think I explained that in the video. And then to line it up, I stuck a series of needles through so that I could sandwich this on and get the holes lined up. So I've got that done. And then I explained that I'm going to now stitch here to here, and then I'll pick up the liner, sew around here, and then back down here. And I think I already talked about that. So that's where I'm at right now, is I'm getting ready to sew this part here on there. And I measured plenty of thread. You missed all my one-liners, but I measured plenty of thread so that I didn't have that issue again of not enough thread. And I'm using that same 0.06 thread here. I broke a needle today. Most of these are needles I've been using for more than a year, but that's my second one this year. But it's April now. Yep, that's the one. So what I'll do to move this to the other side is I'll go ahead now and I'll push this to the other side. And now I'll come through that hole, through that layer there. Pick that up. And I'm going to take an extra wrap around here because that's going to be a high stress point, this wallet. And then we will continue on with our stitching. So if you're a leather worker and you do wallets, I see some of these wallets that people create and they're just beautiful, but the edge is like, I swear some of them, they're a ½ inch thick of leather. And I just, I wouldn't want my wallet that way. This one's going to be thick enough as it is. There's probably I could do the math. We're going to be somewhere around 12 ounces of leather on the edge here. But I've seen some, I think, that are a lot more than that. And I was wondering, is that a problem for you and your customers to have that thick seam here on a wallet? This leather is the vegtan, probably from all the handling of it, but it's not terribly stiff. So that'll make it feel a little bit better, I suppose. So I'm going to continue stitching all the way around, and I'll come back when I'm ready to get on this second side over here. So here we are. I'm just trying to keep outside of the stitch line there. And then the same on this. The stitches are plenty strong to hold the wallet together. And as I said, a lot of it just has to do with how the edge of the wallet finishes. And I can't remember if I said before, because I was recording then not recording. But let me know, do you, me personally, when I'm, before I started doing leather work, if I was looking for a wallet, I'm paying attention to how thick the wallet is. I don't want something pretty thick. And I noticed on some of the people that put out videos and making wallets and such, that the edge of the wallet is really, I think, extremely thick, kind of in this range of like my knife sheath here. It just seems like a lot to me. But I'm curious, do you get negative feedback if that's how your wallets finish out? Because if it is, or if you don't, I would like to know that so that I can feel a little bit more comfortable having a thicker wallet. Here it is here. It's not been finished yet. Let's see what that measures. So it's 1/4 inch, 16 ounces. Yeah, that was here. I'll let this dry, and then I'll just go ahead and show you here, because I'll probably forget to turn the camera back on. But when I go to line it up, I'll put some needles through these holes here, and that will help me. I'll put like 4 or 5 of them there. That'll help me get this lined up properly. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll stitch around to this point here, and I'll do a couple back stitches to strengthen that up, and I'll be ready for edge work. And then I need to also oil this vegtan leather on the face here anyway. I'll slick down the inside of this pocket on this vegtan side with some tan coat. Let's take a look where we're at here. I went ahead and I did my initial sanding around here, and I tried to keep in mind, it probably looks like it's wider than it is. It's got a little flange there that'll get trimmed off. But I tried to balance out my border here. If you remember, I set this one in a 1/16 further from the end so that I had more to sand off there. So now I've got that completed. I did put a light coat of oil on here because I've let this sit overnight, and I need to work on my edge. So I'm going to grab my Ron's number 3, and let me move you over here a little bit. Work off the edge. And let's see how this is going to look. I may need to go to a number 4, but I didn't want to get into my stitch line here too far. So looking at that, yeah, the top is a little narrower, isn't it? I may use just a 3 on the top, but I'm going to use a 4 around here. That's partially because of the thickness here. This is a 1/4 inch, and this is like 3/16. a little bit less than 3/16. I think I may need to sharpen my edge or some. And I'll stay away from here. I'm looking at this, just trying to make sure that it looks similar. And this is just the rough edging so far. I'll be doing quite a bit of sanding. When I'm on these thicker pieces of leather, especially you know, wallets and such, that you're going to be handling a lot, I'll spend a lot of time on these edges. So my number 4 really didn't cut very deep there. May need to sharpen it. So when I'm sanding this wallet, first I'll use sandpaper around a stick. It helps me control what I'm doing more that way. On chrome tan, I find it better to sand in one direction like I'm doing here. It's not as critical on veg tan, but you get a cleaner looking edge here. So if you look here, you've got, I don't know what I'd call it, just kind of uneven here, but it's evened out considerably. And this is 120 sandpaper. So once I get it where I want, then I'll move down through the grits a little bit. I typically don't do a whole lot of that, but it helps, in my opinion, more with the chrome tan than the veg tan. After I get the final shape of my bevels, if I want to improve or make them more round, I can do that here with the sandpaper. Once I get everything shaped where I want, then I'll move down to 220. On veg tan, I usually don't go a lot further than, say, 220. So I find it useful, even after the 120, to do a slight burnishing, and it'll highlight some areas I need to focus on more. So let me get started with that. So I'm just getting started here with this initial burnish. When I'm dealing with natural veg tan leather, I always grab a new clean rag so that I'm less likely to transfer color from the previous job. That was just water and this rag, that's it. I know people tell you have to use a bunch of different stuff, and so I would just tell you, find what works for you on it. And I don't know why, but it seemed like when I first started, nothing worked, never created a burnish. But
this works pretty good for me. Once I get this initial burnish on here, then I will come along. A lot of times I'll use Resling, but this wall, it's going to have tan coat on there, so I'll put a coat of tan coat on these edges and slick it down with a rag as well. And then once that's complete, I will come back probably with some even finer sandpaper and kind of repeat the process again to get the edge that I'm looking for. There's nothing wrong with getting advice from people, but once you get that advice, try it yourself and see how it works for you. So after that, I can see I've got a little bit of exposed, after that you can see I have a little bit of exposed glue here. And maybe there. It works better if you let it dry a little bit, but I'm just showing you here. I'll just come back with the stick and I'll sand a little bit more on this edge. I'll sand there and this one as well. If you have glue, you can also come back with your little rubber cement pickup tool, and that'll help pull that off there, because it's pretty hard to sand through any potential glue that's on there. That's a good start. I've got some tan coat on here. I'm just going to put tan coat on these edges, and I just slick it down. It's kind of a dry sponge. I don't know if it's showing that very well or not. A little more sanding right there. Part of that's that chrome tan, and chrome tan just doesn't burnish, but I find that the tan coat helps slick those down, fill some of those fibers in. I'll let that dry. I want it to be thoroughly dry, so I'll come back in an hour or so and probably run over it with some 400 grit sandpaper and a little bit more tan coat. But I think we're looking really pretty good here. I'll be back in a little bit. Alrighty, the tan coat has dried. I'm just giving it one final sanding here. There were just a couple of areas that fuzzed up, and one or two areas I thought could be touched up with the sandpaper here. And I think these edges come out really nice. The tan coat, I think, did a really good job. Slicked that down when using tan coat. And just a sponge after the first burnish. By the time you see this video, the gentleman will have his wallet. I'll be sending that out, I think, yet today. Give you a quick look at it here, but I think the coloring's pretty cool. We'll see how well it holds up on this sharp of a bend here. Time will tell. I let the gentleman that it's for know that if it doesn't hold up, you know, within his expectations, that I would redesign it and do it maybe a little bit differently, or just make him a different replacement wallet on it. I've not used snakeskin on a wallet like this, and a little bit concerned about the durability of it. It's different than a belt. You know, a belt you would think would take quite a bit of abuse, but I think a wallet's tougher yet. So let me put a little bit more tan coat on here. I'll let this dry, and then we'll be back for a wrap-up video.
Let me get you an up-close look. There's spots here for 6 cards, plenty of room for cash. I think it came out really nice. The stitching stands out nicely. It'll actually stand out less over time. This wallet will age and pick up oils off your hands of using it, and sunlight will all darken it up. This will end up being a walnut color around here. So right now it's the same color as the light spots. It'll gradually get towards the darker area there. So I think it turned out really nice. I'm going to ship this today. Matter of fact, I'm on my way out the door right now to ship this off to California. Hopefully the gentleman enjoys it. I am a little concerned about the durability of snakeskin, so we're going to find out. I thought afterwards I maybe could change the design and make a window here and a window here, avoiding this area here. That's probably going to be the first area to wear, would be there. I guess we'll find out. He's a repeat customer, and I explained the situation to him. If it doesn't work out, I can make another one and change the window design, or I'll just make him a different wallet altogether. I appreciate you being here today. Please like, share, and subscribe. But more importantly, I do hope you have a great day.